Included in South Africa, and we were preparing the evidence to travel back to the States, but the permitting, once again, the South Africans were being difficult about getting permits to get the evidence out of the country. We should have known at that point what was going to happen.
Well, it's hard to remember it all now. It's hard to remember how excited we were. But the reason I've agreed to do this is because I think it'll help. Becky and I believe that. Brian, however, is a bit more cynical. I think he doesn't have that kind of faith. And I don't blame him, certainly not after what happened.
What the hell's going on here? Where did you get this from?
I tried to restrain Brian. Then after that, I tried to pick him up for weeks, but he was just devastated. We all were.
The police confiscated everything. All the lab tests, all of the files, the skull reconstruction we'd brought back. And they took the body.
Well, I've certainly never seen anything like it before, and I've worked here for 20 years. This was unprecedented. This was not some normal police raid. This was a slick operation. They came early in the morning when they knew no one would be around. They had all the right documentation. Confiscation of a discovery of national importance. I mean, I've never heard of that before.
We knew who did it. I mean, we all know who is really behind it. The tests, the sonar tests. We prove this, and they have to stop the testing. They have to acknowledge that they have a sonar weapon. And who knows what else they'd have to acknowledge.
All that we had left, the only thing that we had left that they hadn't seized were the bloop recordings. They couldn't take those. Those were already a matter of public record. We were so focused on everything that we'd lost that the government had taken that we didn't realize that everything we needed was in those recordings. The recordings would prove to be everything.
A shallow coastal lagoon in the southern hemisphere, where the creatures retreat to warm, protected waters, where a species in decline still clings on.
When we got back to the States, we were in shock. We couldn't stay in South Africa. We had our visas revoked. And when we got back to Washington, we lodged several protests with the American and South African governments. The South Africans eventually did respond. The DNA samples that they had confiscated from the university lab where they're being processed, they shared those with us.
Because the DNA readings that came back were so close to human DNA, the lab that did the tests claimed that they'd been contaminated with human DNA. How else, they said, could the genetic profiles have been so similar? They discredited the results, and they destroyed the samples.
The feeling was like something out of Orwell. This was Big Brother. They were rewriting history, basically writing this creature out of existence. And the question I asked myself is, why? Are they protecting their testing? Are they keeping the creatures for themselves? Are they testing the creatures? We don't know. We still don't know. All we had now was time. We just kept poring over it. The beachings with reports of bodies washing up on shore, where local officials had closed off areas, and in some cases reportedly with the help of American officers in civilian clothes. We kept thinking back to the beaching that happened right here in Washington, that naval medical team. We had thought they were analyzing their tests on whales, but now we had a slightly different theory. We tracked down the kids that had made the original report, and the Navy had spent a lot of time with these kids. They had even visited them at home, and they had convinced the kids that what they had seen was actually a seal that had decomposed, and that's why it looked strange. The boy had drawn a picture of what he saw. Now, nobody outside of the scientists we work with or the government officials that had confiscated our materials could have known what the skull reconstruction looked like. But this kid had a drawing of what he had seen. And it was a match. He'd seen the same thing. And that's not all we saw. The boy's mom agreed to show it to us. They hadn't shown it to anybody. The Navy had not thought to check the kid's camera phone. Now, that's not the first time the military's gotten caught by a camera phone, but back then, most people didn't even have them. I doubt the investigating officer even bothered to check it. This kid had kept it. He'd kept it all that time. The first time I watched the video, I remember feeling a chill, and not from the shock of seeing it alive, but I remember thinking about the moments before the sonar blast, that this creature didn't stand a chance.
The mermaids travel with whales. They migrate from warm southern waters where, like the whales, they give birth to their young. Now they make their way to the northern feeding grounds. Whales offer protection from orcas and open ocean sharks. And females with young can draft off them, conserving energy as they swim up the long length of the Pacific coast. The deep ocean has been their last hiding place. But now, even here, there's no refuge. And whales cannot protect them from the new threats that are gathering. They swim through a stretch of water in the Pacific Northwest. U.S. Navy ships were also there that day. What happened to them next was captured on NOAA audio recordings.
We never found another living one. At least not during my tenure with the Navy. When I resigned, we weren't even sure if there were any left to be found. The creature we pulled off the beach in Washington State died in 2007. We kept it alive as long as we could. I know what I did was wrong. I knew it was wrong while I was doing it, and I have to live with that. My only hope now is that by coming forward, it might help protect any of them that are still out there.
We knew that they were washing up with the whales. What we found was that the beachings were happening along migratory routes.
They didn't just associate with the whales. They migrated with them. We were going to try to make contact. We knew we were in the right vicinity when we saw the whales. And we started the recording, and we waited to see if there was anything out there. There was something out there. Brian was certain he saw something. And I'm pretty sure I saw something too.